Well, hello everyone, Texie88 here and welcome to another video. And you may remember in March of 2021 I did a video about what was potentially an unsung hero of one of my favourite genres of film, which is classic Hong Kong action cinema. And back then I did a video about Fung Hak On, and now I've decided to pick another one who perhaps you might not be quite so familiar with unless you're really versed in this kind of this particular part of cinema history. And this time I've picked the legend that is Lam Ching-Ying. And he was born on the 27th of December 1952 in Hong Kong, which was still a British colony at the time. And he went, like so many other of his contemporaries. He learnt his physical craft in the Peking Opera School, but not that of Master Yu Jim Yun that gave us the likes of Sammo Hung, Jackie Chan, Yun Buidao. He went to the other main one of note, which was under the guidance of a woman named Madame Fan Fot Fa, and he was in that school for 5 years. And like Sammo and Jackie before him, left after deciding there wasn't really much of a future in Peking opera due to the movies taking over and popularity in Peking opera generally being in decline. And he became a stuntman and martial arts coach when he joined the Shaw Brothers studio, and his build was slim enough that he could actually double women without it being particularly noticeable. And that would and his general abilities as a stuntman also would serve him in good stead. And even no less a man than Bruce Lee was impressed with him at one point. And in fact, Lam Ching-Ying actually had a supporting role in The Big Boss, which was Bruce Lee's first major global smash hit back in 1971. Now, The Big Boss was at one point known as Fists of Fury in the United States, although I believe that title is no longer used even there since about 2008. But its English title elsewhere in the world has always been The Big Boss, as far as I can make out. It certainly was here in the UK. And he in that Lam played one of the people that Bruce Lee went to stay and work with, and he wasn't just in a bit part here and there. He was actually quite a prominent supporting actor. And also, if that weren't enough, he also got, admittedly less screen time, but he also appeared in Fist of Fury, which Bruce Lee did for Lo Wei immediately after The Big Boss. And he's noticeable as being the one holding the broom, and in one of the last in the last mass fight that Bruce Lee has in the Japanese school. Although you do see him very briefly in the earlier fight that he also has at the school, if you look carefully enough. He's got quite a distinctive face, so it's hard. If you know what to look for, you'll easily spot him. But he was also, even in Enter the Dragon. In fact, you can if you look, he not only gets kicked out of a glass through a glass window / door by Jim Kelly in the fight in Han's office, but there was a point. But Lam also is visible when Jim Kelly's making bets with that other man, while John Saxon's character Roper is is having a fight, and you can actually see Lam very prominently sitting very close by both of them. And Lam also doubled Shikeen in the final for the final fight against Bruce. But it was when Lam Ching-Ying started to work under Sammo that he really started to gain more traction in his career, and he appeared in the Magnificent Butcher as one of the evil lackeys, and he has a brilliant fight with Yun Bu whilst armed with a fan, and that is his standout moment in that film. Although the film itself is definitely worth a look anyway. Um, it gave Sammo the role he was born to play, and is genuinely a classic in his own right, and was directed by Yun Wo-ping, who went on to choreograph the action in The Matrix, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and the Kill Bill volumes, et al. And not long after The Magnificent Butcher, he appeared as the police inspector in Encounters of the Spooky Kind, a mix of horror and kung fu that Sammo starred in and directed in 1980. And there are points where he got to show more of his stuff, as well as his acting ability and general on-screen charisma, and he was quite an imposing character in that as well, without actually being an evil man per se. He's just a police inspector who's doing his job, and at one point Sammo gets wrongfully accused of a crime. And Encounters of the Spooky Kind, which is also known as Spooky Encounters, would later reportedly go on to influence Sam Raimi to do The Evil Dead not long after. But many people will know Lam Ching-Ying from his appearance as Master Leung Yi Tai in The Prodigal Son, and for which he actually won a Hong Kong Film Award for Best Action Director. The Prodigal Son stars Yun Bu and actually and has Lam Ching-Ying in a high profile supporting role in that, and also features Sammo Hung, and is directed by Sammo. And a lot of people consider The Prodigal Son to be one of the greatest films of its time to feature Wing Chun. Although Sammo had starred in and directed a film called Warriors 2 a few years earlier, which also briefly featured Lam Ching-Ying in it. But Lam Ching-Ying is more prominently featured in The Prodigal Son, and he's great to watch in it. If you haven't seen The Prodigal Son, I strongly recommend it. At the time of recording this video, Eureka Entertainment has just brought out a limited edition UK Blu-ray double pack containing both Warriors 2 and The Prodigal Son, and the limited edition thing also contains a booklet about both films and some context of the Hong Kong film industry at the time, and both of the films are absolutely superb. And with The Prodigal Son, it also effectively started a new wave of Hong Kong style action. In the film, Yun Bu plays a spoilt kid who plays who's known as a local street brawler who claims to have won hundreds of fights and never lost, but in reality his father's paying his opponents to challenge him and deliberately lose to him, so that he doesn't get hurt. But it's when Lam Ching-Ying exposes the lie in spectacular fashion, and Yun Bu's character Lung Zhan suffers a humiliating defeat that he realizes. And the interesting thing, when Lung Zhan tries following Lung Yitai, Lam Ching-Ying's character, around, just trying to get the latter to agree to be his master, his Sifu, and is a mixture of comical and dark tones in the process. And the whole film's a joy to watch, and Lam Ching-Ying is without a doubt the main standout part. I mean, yeah, Yun Bu has his famous kicking and gymnastic ability, but I personally think that Lam Ching-Ying has the most memorable aspect of the whole film with his character. And for me, it's one of my favourite period kung fu films. And after that, Lam Ching-Ying appeared in some of Sammo's other films, like My Lucky Stars, Winners and Sinners. I'm trying to remember whether he was in Twinkle Twinkle Lucky Stars. I don't think he was. No, I don't think he was. But all this exposure, and thanks to the fact that both My Lucky Stars and Winners and Sinners featured Jackie Chan, albeit in a supporting role, also helped to give Lam more exposure in the West, where he might otherwise have remained in obscurity outside of the likes of the Prodigal Son. And he also appeared as the SWAT leader in the film Heart of Dragon, which is one of the few times during this period that Jackie Chan was not doing his usual happy-go-lucky underdog action persona type thing. Although it does have some action in it, the main focus is drama, and it also means that pretty much everyone in it was having to rely more on their acting ability and not just their physical prowess. And even though Lam Ching-Ying's not in it for the whole film, he still manages to command an incredible lead performance as playing a part of a leader. In this case, the leader of a SWAT team. But the best was yet to come, as in 1985 he appeared in the film that would pretty much give him the most defining role for the rest of his career, when he was cast as Master Cao in Mr. Vampire, which was produced by Sammo Hung's company Boho, and starred Lam Ching-Ying as a Taoist vampire buster, and has him battling against Chinese style vampires, which for the most part are blind and hop about with both feet, and it's believed that this is due to rigor mortis, that they just hop about rather than walk. And there are other little differences between their types of vampires and the Western style vampires, like Count Dracula. But once Lam appeared in Mr. Vampire, that pretty much audiences pretty much wanted to see him as that, and he even starred in a modern film of its type called Magic Cop, which was which was towards the end of the decade. And Lam Ching-Ying also, although he didn't actually attend Yu Jim-Yun's Chinese Drama Academy, he did appear in a film called Painted Faces, in which Sammo Hung played Master Yu Jim-Yun, and it was effectively a biopic about Yu Jim-Yun, his Chinese Drama Academy, that gave us not only Sammo but Jackie Yun et al., as mentioned earlier. This didn't really have Lam doing any action, but it showed that he had a commanding enough presence that he didn't have to be in action to be acclaimed, and he put in a pretty good performance in the character that he played. But another film in which he very notably appeared was in Eastern Condors, which a lot of people seem to consider to be Sammo's finest directorial achievement. Sammo, who also slimmed down to be able to more easily do the action that he did on screen in that, was also the director, and Lam Ching-Ying played the chief of Sammo and a whole bunch of others, which are basically like Hong Kong's equivalent to the Dirty Dozen. Sammo is one of several Chinese American criminals who's been given a shot at freedom and $250,000 as long as they complete a mission in Vietnam. And Lam Ching-Ying plays the chief of that particular group, and he puts in a great performance in that as well, and once again shows how what a great screen presence he had. When the 90s started, his work on the big screen probably started to dwindle a little, but he did manage to find fame taking on a role akin to his most famous role that he had played in Mr. Vampire, in which he starred in a television program called Vampire Expert. And that pretty much revived his career, at least on the small screen. And he actually developed a relationship with Kingdom Yun, who starred with him. And Kingdom and Lam both fell in love for real, just like their on-screen characters. But unfortunately, fate turned her back on Lam in a really big way. On the 8th of November 1997, Lam Ching-Ying passed away at the age of just 44. Sometime in the summer, although no one's absolutely certain when he was actually diagnosed, as he forbade anyone to discuss it with the general public. He was diagnosed with hereditary liver cancer, and this is what ultimately took him from us. Lam was yet another Hong Kong legend who died much too young, and this, my understanding from what Sammo has said in interviews, is that Lam's death was one of two in which he was really upset and actually cried at the funeral. The other was the funeral of Bruce Lee all those years earlier. It just goes to show how revered Lam was, even by big names like Sammo. And when you see what Lam has managed to do on the on small screen and and especially the big screen during his heyday. It's very easy to see just what a tragic loss this was to Hong Kong action cinema of this time. And he was cremated after the funeral and buried in the United States. And my understanding is that that there was a sign written in calligraphy which translated to "One smile returns to the West." And that is my video about the late great Lam Ching-Ying. I hope you enjoyed this video and hope to catch you in another video soon. Taxi88 out.